Hey, this is Justin. We are live. It is Sunday evening or Saturday evening. Call it 4/27, 2024. Doing walk and talk, and I guess a sit and talk a little bit, just to test out some of the ways to turn the conversations in these posts into something else. So what I do have running in the background here, I've got Clef Notes running in the background here. Let me just send out a let me send out a got the note there. Let me set a timer for 9 minutes. Set timer for 9 minutes. There we go. Yep. All right. So using some of the other tools on the background here. I'm using Clef Notes and Otter.ai to be able to get the transcripts of these conversations and to see what's actually coming out of the conversation. So the whole idea is, how do you take a chat and then turn it into something that is potentially useful on the back end. If you would like to join live, if you would like to join live, leave a comment and I will share a link. All right, perfect. So that'll give people the chance to it'll give people a chance to share live if you'd like to actually join into the conversation live. So the whole idea is, how do you go from thoughts rattling around inside the brain, turning them into things that could potentially be useful out there into the world, and then start to process and to summarize. So we're going to do a couple of different things. We're going to get with the tool Clef Notes, going to get a summary of 9 minutes of this chat. Also running Otter.ai in the background, which is going to allow for to start to ask questions of some of the conversations that are starting to ask questions of some of the conversations that are starting to come out of this work. And actually, let me just see if I can pull up the live conversation on Otter. Let's see if I can pull up the live one that we're actually working with right now. Okay, so we can pull it up live here in the moment, and we can start to ask questions of it and then start to answer some of those questions live that are inspired by the post. So we asked the question, what part from the last 5 minutes, what questions get inspired from the conversations that we had in the last 5 minutes, and then start to refine some of those questions and then start to answer some of those questions. So we go from a random brainstorm into something that is go from a random brainstorm into something that is some questions that can be asked on the back end, moving it into starting to answer some of those questions later on. So we'll mess around with a couple of different things as we start getting into the chat. And so let me just go. I think I can actually do a screen share here to go. Actually, if I pull a different, let's see if we can pull up a different, pull this into a different channel. All right, brilliant. We can get both going at the same time. We can start screen sharing some of the Otter pieces. So you can actually see live what are some of the pieces that we're starting to work through and to mess around with. So let me see if I can actually present this live. Outline. An outline is starting to develop here, but they're not going to have an outline yet for some of the work. And then let me just see how this will start to play. Outline, comments, questions, chat is outline live. Otter chat AI. Okay, perfect. So we can ask for this for the live questions here. Interesting. For this home, can I chat with this live? I don't usually work on the desktop, so the transcript is processing live. Let me just see from the desktop chat. Okay, good. We can get the chat going here as well. Let's start messing around with this a little bit and see what we got going on here. Present. I'm going to present to share screen here. Share screen. Don't show these type again. That's fine. Share screen. Let's do a window. Yep, there it is right there. It's live. All right, we'll share this live on the screen. I don't know if it's if you're on your mobile, if you're able to see it in any sort of usable way, but we start talking about, I'll start adding in here is, just make this a little bit more useful here. So you can ask the question, what questions are inspired by this chat? let's see. So it's going to go through the transcript right now and say questions. Okay, what are some examples of how Cliff Notes can be used to analyze conversation? So that's Cliff Notes. It's a typo. How can questions from a brainstorming chat be refined and answered later on? So let's start answering that one right here. We'll start answering that question. I'm going to drop that into here. Boop, 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 boop. Let's just see here some of the questions that we can get here. We'll get this one if you'd like to join live. Right, perfect. We got that. So here's the question that got asked here. We'll show that question here. So how can questions from brainstorming chat be refined and answered later on, right? So you can, one, ask the questions and then start to answer some of the questions. So the question just got asked there. You can start to answer these things live. You can also start to capture some of the questions that are being asked live, ask some of the questions being asked later on live. So it's the whole idea of how do you go from getting something that's rattling around the head, getting it out of the head into a way where it can potentially be usable, and then starting to refine some of the questions that we're starting to ask, so we can basically have this piece of work be usable to our future self. So that's the whole name of the game. And then potentially start to identify some of the action items that are coming out of these sessions. So that was the first question. Let me just see what other questions. What questions are inspired by this chat? Let's just see what other questions come up here. How can chat conversation be summarized and turned into useful questions and answers? What are some, okay, how can questions from a brainstorm? Okay, let me just see what some of the other questions are. So probably need a little bit more time that we're starting to work with. So also what we're running here with the Clef Notes, that's going to come up with a summary of some of the pieces that we're starting to work with. So I'm going to start processing that in the background, and that's going to be a usable summary of the conversations that we're starting to work with here. So let me just process that real quickly. I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm doing that on my phone in the background, so I'm not going to see that on the laptop as we're working with the notes providing. So it'll start giving a summary of what some of the conversations are that we're working with and working through here. Okay, so let's just see. Let me just see if there's a better way to do this. That's okay. We can work through these two here that way. Building a meditation, coding your expressions. That's working with the Clef Notes right here. Okay, so it is. I'm testing out a walk and talk experiment to see how I can turn conversations into something useful using Clef Notes and Otter.ai to transcribe and analyze our conversation. The goal is to take thoughts and ideas rattling around in my brain and turn them into something useful. I want to see how I can process these thoughts, ask questions, and start to answer them. Tools: we're using Clef Notes to get a summary of our 9-minute conversation, also using Otter.ai in the background to ask questions and start answering them. Here's what I'm doing. I'm recording our conversation using Clef Notes to get a summary of our chat. I'm using Otter.ai to ask questions, inspire our conversation. I'll start answering some of these questions and refining them. I'll also capture some of the questions being asked live and answer them later on. Some questions inspired by our conversation so far. How can questions from a brainstorming session be refined and answered later? How can chat conversations be summarized and turn something useful and answers? What does it look like? So the next steps is I'll continue to process our conversation using Clef Notes and Otter, summarize the key points, and start answering some of the questions. Okay, so that's a decent note. Probably have to prompt it a little bit better to start getting some of the better ideas out of the conversation. I'm going to see if the outline starts to pull up line. Okay, so it's starting to summarize the pieces that we're starting to work through. Turning chat conversations to useful content, turning thoughts into actionable items using Otter.ai, using Cliff Notes, it's Clef Notes, and Otter to analyze and turn conversations into usable ideas. So now we're starting to cycle through some of the processing stuff, but then also moving into like how do you start moving into some of the conversational stuff. So I'm actually going to see see what idea, like where can we start entering into chats and having some prompts. That's the whole idea of prompts for some of the topics that we want to talk about later. So if you are joining live and if you are seeing this live, we're experimenting with some tools here. Experimenting with some tools. And if you'd like to join on live, please feel free. Leave a comment down below, and we'll leave and I'll send you a link Yeah, we'll send a link if you are joining the session live and you'd like to actually see. So working through sharing some of the transcripts live of the chat, and then just figuring out how do we take ideas and then turn them into real things out there pretty quickly. Just doing stream of consciousness brainstorming sessions, and then how do we start to turn it into usable other information later on. I should actually change my. I'm looking at changing the avatar there that we're starting to work with. So I might put an end to this one actually right now and see where we can get some. Seeing some of the ideas that came out, and then also going back and watching the Artie Lang Dark Side of Comedy right now, and watching the Artie Lang Dark Side of Comedy, and we'll watch that and come back and maybe do a couple of their lives later on this evening. So have an amazing day, and we'll speak soon.